What's up, Whisper Nation? The Fantasy Whispers are back here going over the AFC South in our next divisional breakdown. That means we're talking the Titans, Colts, Texans, and Jaguars right here on the Fantasy Whispers.
Right here.
What's up, Whisper Nation? If you're seeing my face or hearing my voice, we'd like to say thank you. And if you could do us a huge favor, you hit that like button and share this on whatever stream or platform you are on right now. That would help us out big time with the algorithms. That helps us grow the channel. And then you help us chase the stream and continue to share this video and share this content with everyone. If you are new to the Fantasy Whispers, welcome in. Hit us up with a follow or subscribe. And we release that fantasy football content that you love Monday through Friday. You can find us or our past shows on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Spotify. Just search the Fantasy Whispers or go to thefantasywhispers.com. We got links to everything there. Johnny, we are talking the AFC South like I just told the people, and I'm excited about this. There's a lot of potential. There's some moving and shaking in the division, but there's some real big, heavy hitters fantasy football-wise.
Yeah, some mega hitters. There is a lot that still could be unraveled and unfolding the next couple of months. But we're going to head start on those players and let you know to expect right now. What you for some of these, moving forward. We'll talk about Desean Watson, things like that. Excited about show, Travis, dude. It's got to be said. It's just got to be put out there, man. We are like 40 subs on YouTube from 1,500 subscribers, man. We are so close. So if you're watching on YouTube, please do us a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button. We want to get Whisper Nation to 1,500 subs. It's only right for them. They deserve that credit.
Absolutely, and we want to keep going, and then we get to 1,500, then it's to 3,000, then it's to 10,000, and then before you know it, dude, we're all out there drafting with Jay-Z on a boat, and I think that's what we want.
And Ric Flair, coming up into the show like, woo!
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we want here.
No, I already do that. I already do that, Travis, but
Johnny and I are a little extra jacked today. We have our Dynasty rookie draft tonight, so we're super excited about that. We're super excited about the AFC South rundown here that we're going to go through with you. But first, Johnny, you had a little bit of a question of the day, so why don't you hit it over for me?
I do, and I apologize. I might be having some technical difficulties here, so bear with me, Whisper Nation. I'll try to get through this. Question of the day, Travis. This is an AFC South show, and so with that, I want to give you a really hard-hitting keep trade cut, because it just so happens that there are 3 mega stars. Well, there's a couple more potentially in this show, and so I want you to decide and tell the people who you would have if you had to choose, because realistically these guys are probably all going to go in the first round. So let Whisper Nation know as to who you would draft or you would want for the season. Let's say you just had to pick one. Okay. All right. Here are the 3 names. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
It's going to be AJ Brown, your boy, and my boy, but I'll give him your boy. You've been hyping him up mad lately, which is great. I agree. So AJ Brown, your other boy, Jonathon Taylor, or Derreck Henry. Which of those 3? You got to keep one, you got to trade one, you got to cut one. You're on the clock. It's draft day, Travis.
Is it Dynasty? Is it this year?
It's this year. It's this
year.
I mean, if you want to throw the Dynasty perspective in there, go ahead.
I'm going to say redraft this year.
You won't,
makes
dude.
It easier.
You won't.
I will. Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say this year, give me Derreck Henry. I'm keeping Derreck Henry. Okay. I am trading AJ Brown. I think I could get AJ Brown a whole lot more, and I'm cutting Jonathon Taylor. And it's not because I don't love Jonathon Taylor. Okay. I just think I get more value out of AJ Brown. The name value's there. He's a beast. We know that. Julio Jones could get traded to the Titans before I get this deal done, or after I get this deal done, which would help.
Dude, why you gotta don't say that? Why you gonna say that, dude?
And
Unbelievable.
Then the last point I'll make is Jonathon Taylor still has to deal with Nyheim Hines and the fact that Frank Reich has always used multiple backs in that system. So Derreck Henry is one of the few, if maybe the only one left in the league that gets like 90% of the touches for his team. And so I love that. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to trade A.J. Brown, and I'm going to cut Jonathon Taylor. But, man, if there was a world I could keep all of them, I would.
The hurt, the deception. Unbelievable.
All right, well, Whisper Nation, that's the keep, trade, cut. Let us know in the comments below who you'd keep, who you'd trade, who you would cut as we work through this AFC South. I'm really excited about it. But first, Whisper Nation, we got to let you know we're nothing without your unwavering support, and we are so proud of this community we have built together. If you feel it upon your heart to help us continue to grow this family and chase this dream, consider joining us over on patreon.com. You can show us the support with the $1, $5, and $10 levels. Even the $1 level, Johnny, helps us out tremendously. Patron benefits include access to our exclusive Discord channels. Yeah, I said channels. There's multiple channels in there. And entries to the sports card giveaways. Johnny's got a ton of great sports card giveaways. We just gave away a Patrick Mahomes card last month. Increased odds for landing spot in our 2021 Listener League, which next month we'll be giving away one of those spots, Johnny, right on Mock Draft Monday. That'll be great. Bonus fantasy content that is only available for our patrons. So head on over to the patreon.com/the Fantasy Whispers today and join the nation. Johnny, we're talking the AFC South, and that means we got to start alphabetically with the Houston Texans, even though this is probably the team we're going to spend the least amount of time on. I was talking with somebody yesterday.
Why are we spending the most or the least amount of time on this, Travis?
Well, because they're dog shit bad. They are just so bad. They are going to be real bad.
Not only that, but there's so many. If you're talking about one team having a lot of more question marks, I can't find one more than Houston Texans right now.
Yeah, the biggest question mark, Johnny, is who the hell are you even interested in on this team for fantasy football purposes? I think we'll get into that. I want to start with Desean Watson. We obviously know that this guy is a beast and he can sling the ball around. And if he was playing, this would change the offense drastically. Everywhere we look, Whisper Nation shows us that Desean Watson is likely not playing this year. Okay. And he may not play in the NFL ever again, but that's a different story. We have heard no new news, which isn't the greatest news, on the situation with the massage therapist, the scandal with him, inappropriately advancing on them and whatnot, things of that nature. We won't get into that. We are a fantasy football show. All you need to know is if he were to be announced to be active, it changes things drastically. We are assuming he is not. So for all of our breakdowns, that is how this will go. So I'll move on to the running backs, Johnny, because through free agency, they've picked up Mark Ingram and Phillip Lindsay. And then you're looking here, you're talking about David Johnson, who last year, if you look at the numbers, wasn't bad. 43% of the rushing market share, was 24th in attempts with 147. He was the RB19 in standard and RB21 in PPR, was his least amount of carries since his rookie season, though, Johnny. It was his career low in receptions with 33 at the running back position. But check this out. He had his best yards per carry last year, 4.7, best of his career. So we're looking at all these different additions. We look at Watson. He's now RB29 coming off the board in the 6th round. And honestly, even with some of the signs of him getting a lot of volume last year and being productive and being a ho-hum RB2, I'm still staying well away from David Johnson based on what's been going on with him. Do you think there's value in the 6th round for DJ? You're a Cardinals fan. You got a little soft spot for your boy David Johnson.
I do have a little bit of a soft spot for David Johnson. That's for sure. I do think he gets a little bit disrespected as far as what he actually brings to the table. Now, he saw a total of over 200 touches last year. So I think that if you're looking from that kind of perspective, we had always said, like the target share is always there. Like he's going to get the carries. And he did. He had the number 2 overall snap share on the team with 77%. Travis, the big story here is that there is so much that has changed off that it doesn't make sense to take him that high. I mean, that was where you were getting him like last year. You were getting him in 5th round, and he didn't have all these question marks around him. I mean, yeah, it was like, is he still going to stay healthy or whatnot? But it's not those question marks that we're asking right now. It's is opportunity still there? And I don't think it is. And he's got to have that opportunity in order to keep producing. So,
and this team is just going to be bad, downright bad. They're not going to have Watson on the field, so there's not going to be a big touchdown upside to keep him on the field. And that's why when we look at the other running backs, Johnny, I'm not even excited about them. Mark Ingram, first of all, we'll start with him because I think he's going to be the direct handcuff to David. Yeah, big trust. Mark Ingram is going to be a big bust this year if you take him in fantasy. I feel like he's played 12 or fewer games in 2 of the last 3 seasons, Johnny, and he's going to be like that direct handcuff to DJ, I imagine. Only 2 years ago, Ingram scored 10 touchdowns with Baltimore, but this is a better team. This is a much worse team than Baltimore was in that heyday. And touchdowns are fluky. We can't look back to that and say, like, this is how we expect Mark Ingram to do, especially in such a worse team. But then Phillip Lindsay, that's what I think people are hyped. They like Phillip Lindsay's story in Denver. They think maybe he could come in, take a Duke Johnson role. Houston is looking to replace 88 carries, but that's only 25% of the rushing market share from last year. That would have been well outside the top 50 at the position. Lindsay's never eclipsed 230 carries himself or even 35 receptions in a year. So you got a low volume back coming in to a team that's not replacing a whole lot of volume. There's just nothing to see here. Move along, Whisper Nation. You don't need to invest in any of these guys there. I'll let Johnny kind of kick it over to the wide receivers. As I statted out Brandon Cooks, Johnny, I noticed that there is one guy on this entire offense I'm interested in, and I think it is Brandon Cooks.
If you're asking me from a redraft standpoint, it would be Brandon Cooks. Obviously, he's the single dog there. He's done it multiple years now in a row. He's kind of outperformed always his ADPs. That's solid kind of wide receiver. There were some question marks. He did have like an up and down season. There were some times when, his volume was there, but he just wasn't producing. Now, I will say Nico Collins, who is the rookie that they just drafted, I am interested in him from a dynasty perspective, because let's say that he doesn't end up, Desean Watson doesn't end up being traded right now, or even if he does, they brought in a rookie quarterback that could potentially sync up. But this guy, Nico Collins, 6'4", 215, Travis, really big hands. So when you're talking from a wide receiver standpoint, you like the big hands. You talk about Deshaun Watson having really big ones, but check this out. He's also, not only does he have is he 6'4", 215 draft pick, 325 third round. So it's the pedigree is kind of there. But here's what I really like. Catch radius, Travis, 10.32 according to Pro Football Focus, which is in the 94th percentile. So you're talking about even if a rookie quarterback comes in, there is a lot of potential there because he can make spectacular catches and things like that. There is some upside. But I do understand from a redraft standpoint, you're probably not going to look his way, especially without a Deshaun Watson. But there
Even
are
in Dynasty, I'm a little scared off of Nico Collins because I don't know what Deshaun Watson's future is. And this is a team that is just out of capital right now and just making a lot of bad choices. I do like Nico Collins. He's definitely a guy that could burst on the scene. The big thing, he has to create separation. You talk about the catch radius. A lot of times with wide receivers, when they come in and their one-trick pony is making spectacular catches, that doesn't always translate because you were doing that on corners in college football. We're talking about plastering you in the NFL. And if you're not going to be able to separate, which is his biggest weakness, according to Pro Football Focus.
So what you're saying, Travis, is it's not an NCAA game.
Yeah,
it's an NFL game.
Not the game, or not practice. Not practice. The game.
The game.
No, Jacob Bley in here says Big Travy and Gametime. What's up? What's up, Jacob Bley? #1 fan. Love to have you in here. Love everybody in here that's joined us as we work through this AFC South. Last note I'll make on Randall Cobb, not even currently being drafted in any format. Only played in 10 games last year, but I will say volume alone, this team, Johnny, this team is going to be bad. This defense is going to be bad. They're going to throw a ton. Somebody should make the bread and butter here. I'm betting it's Brandon Cooks, and I think he's still cheap enough to go after. Let me just real quick note on Brandon Cooks here, Johnny. Was the wide receiver 15 in standard, wide receiver 16 in PPR last year, scored 15 or more fantasy points in half-point PPR in a third of his games. 119 targets placed him 18th among wide receivers. That was with Will Fuller. there. But now Will Fuller's gone, and only 5 teams need to replace more targets in 2021 than the Texans. 194 targets, almost 200 targets up for grab in that offense. So even if they're going to be worse, obviously, without Desean Watson. But 200 targets worse, they're definitely going to still throw the football, right, Johnny? And then you look at 37% of the target market share up for grabs, like we just said, and he's being drafted as the wide receiver 35 in the 8th round. That is really good value. I think Brandon Cooks is the only guy I'm coming away from with the Texans feeling somewhat confident drafting in fantasy football this year, as long as Desean Watson doesn't play.
Travis, I can't believe it, man. I can't believe it. I did not think that going into that argument right there, you were going to make an argument where I would actually be kind of second guessing. But I will also say, based on what you're saying there, Cobb isn't a sexy pick, and I don't know how much the potential actual upside could be there, but it's a dart throw. Why not?
You're right.
But the nice thing here that I want to point out, Tyrod Taylor, who is potentially going to be the starting quarterback there, 6.9 yards per attempt, Travis. That is right in the range of, where Cobb would be. And so you're looking at also fitting up with the scheme. So there is actually some potential there. So well done. I like the argument, man.
Not for Cobb, for Cooks. All that was for Cooks. But if you're saying, like, if you think Cobb as well is somebody that I think Cobb not being drafted is still a value as well. If you're going to throw a dart throw,
that's what I'm saying. When you were referring to Cobb,
when we look at teams that have bad players, so to speak, how do we salvage that for fantasy? I mean, Jamison Crowder was the wide receiver 7, I believe, in points per game last year on a really, really bad Jets team with a really, really bad quarterback play. But it's because of the volume. I think Cooks and Cobb, to an extent, are going to have tons of volume and could feast, especially in redraft or in best ball leagues where you're going after guys that you don't have to really worry about too much. All right, let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts, Johnny, and I'm going to let you take over here because we got to start with Carson Wentz. That's the big move here. Now, there's either 2 camps on Carson Wentz right now. You're either in the camp that he's broken, that Philly basically broke him, that he has no confidence anymore, that town of Philadelphia chewed him up, spit him out, gargled him a little bit, spit him out, stepped on him, whatever. That's what Philly does. Or you're in the other camp, where if you look at Carson Wentz's MVP season, that was with Frank Reich, who was calling plays over in Philadelphia at the time, who is now the head coach calling plays in Indianapolis. If you look at the offensive line that the Colts have, if you look at some of the young weapons that the Colts have, maybe they go and trade for Julio Jones, Johnny. If you look at Jonathon Taylor in the backfield they have, if you look at the tight ends, which I'm excited to get into a little bit, this is reminiscent of the squad that Wentz had before. So is Wentz broken, or are we going to see a bounce back year? And does that mean there's some value in fantasy for Carson Wentz?
I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. I know I am, just because this is not going to be a popular take, but I do actually believe that Carson Wentz will be a value when it comes to the draft. If you miss out on these guys that, are taken in those mid sections, you don't want to take, the Dax, the Kyler Murray, the Russell Wilsons, just because you would rather, stack depth at the running back position or grab some wide receivers because there's some nice pieces there that could potentially be top 12 wide receivers. I get it. And I think that there is some potential for Carson Wentz going back. Travis, you asked if I thought he was broken. I think he was broken in that system and in that town. I think Philadelphia will, eat you up and spit you out. You can ask Phil Kelsey herself. She'll tell you. And I think that that's what happened. We know how much of a confidence guy Carson Wentz is already. Yes, were there locker room problems? There are a lot of reports that there are, but it had to do with, Carson Wentz wanting to get along with like certain people of, because of his religion, when it's like, that's a different topic, but I'm just saying that could be, I just feel like that's something that people are trying to drum up as opposed to actually, something that's going to segregate a locker room. So I just want to, people could say, oh, the Frank Reich part, oh, that was a fluke, right? Like, I believe that Frank Reich can fix him. I think he knows what he needs to do in order to fix him. But let's say people say, I don't believe that that is the case. I think that, Frank Reich was a lucky, got the most out of him that 1 year. That was a one-hit wonder. I'm just going to go back 2 years, Travis, to 2019. So one year, 2 football seasons ago, he wasn't, Carson Wentz wasn't the MVP. He was coming off basically a disappointing season. And these are his stats, Travis. He had 4,000 passing yards, which ranked 9th in the league. He had completed air yards was just over 2,200, which was also 9th in the league. He had 25 passing touchdowns, which was 5th in the league, and you could say, oh, well, that seems a little astronomical that he got all the way up there, Travis, 27 touchdowns. That was only a 4.4% touchdown rate, Travis, which is that's exactly where the average quarterback is. So I think that, his carries that year, he had 62, which was 7th in the league. We talked about how it's, had been a kind of a tendency for quarterbacks for the Colts to kind of scramble outside of, Rivers, because he can't really do that, Travis. So I do think that based on these things and the fact that if it doesn't work out, then sure, drop him, and it's no big deal. You can always stream the position. But there is a potential that Frank Reich does correct him. Now that he's got the weapons around him, the supporting cast, Travis, even with all those stats, when he threw for over 4,000 yards and 27 touchdowns, Travis, his supporting cast was still ranked 19th in the league. He wasn't doing it astronomical. It wasn't crazy. His wide receiver core in Indianapolis, it's going to be hands down way better. And so I do believe that because of, matching up with Frank Reich, the ability that the run game will be there with a much improved offensive line. And then he's got weapons now. It's all adding up. We just don't want to tend to believe it because we want to say and poke at it and say, oh, he was a bust for, first, second pick off the board.
Chris Sims has been quoted saying he doesn't see how it doesn't work for him to be here. And all the things you mentioned, I think the biggest thing is the offensive line, Johnny. This offensive line is fantastic. I mean, it kept Phillip Rivers very upright last year. And I'm not saying Phillip Rivers was a fantasy all-star last year, but if you look at the line being able to keep him healthy, you talk about T.Y. Hilton being a deep threat. You talk about Pittman and Paris Campbell. You talk about the tight ends, which is something he's loved in his career. Mo Alley Cox and Jack Doyle there at the tight end position. You love that situation. So for me, I'm with you. I think Wentz is going to be a great value quarterback, even in one quarterback leagues. As a guy you could dart throw in the late rounds, that could definitely be a guy that has a bounce back season.
And Matt Ryan, Matt Ryan of a couple of years ago. Everyone's writing him off.
The team to do it. I want to talk a little bit about Jonathon Taylor. Obviously, we know that we love Jonathon Taylor because of the tale of 2 seasons that he had, Johnny. I mean, 55% snap share or fewer in all but 2 of his first 10 games. But then he finished as the RB4 and RB6 in standard and PPR, respectively. Week 10 was one of his worst games at Tennessee. You look at he had Green Bay game where he had in week 11, 26 touches. Then he gets COVID, misses week 12. I mean, it was all over the place, right? The final 5 games, he averaged 21 touches, 144 all-purpose yards, scored 8 touchdowns in that stretch. And after he returned from COVID, no other running back scored more points than Jonathon Taylor in weeks 13 through 17. His average was 26 PPR fantasy points over that span. If you just look at where he's going, Johnny, he's settled down. His ADP has settled way down from being top 5 now because they brought Marlon Mack back, of course. I don't think that Marlon Mack's going to do much it's in the way of Jonathon Taylor. I think you should be investing in Taylor. You should invest in Mack as a backup to Taylor. And I think, you can talk to the people about Nyheim Hines, who finished his RB 24 in standard and 15 in PPR. But I think it's Jonathon Taylor for me. Some backfields you wait and you go for the later guy, but this is a backfield where the upside is too rich with Jonathon Taylor.
I think that you're very accurate in what you're saying with Jonathon Taylor still being a very big value. Now, there is that potential even more so than it was last year where you were drafting him in the 3rd round and, it kind of did end up paying off if you took him. It did end up paying off, but it was definitely worth the game. The draft was significant where if it didn't work out, we're going to kind of blow your tire, to lack of a better. I think if in the first and he doesn't, and Marlon Mack gets more workload than we expected, kind of what we saw that then you're going to be really getting some concern. So my advice would be, if you're in that 5-6 spot, you want to Jonathon Taylor. The upside is definitely there because he could be the number one running back for sure. If you're not in that spot, I advise as to take a different position or what have you, a wider if you prefer, and then wait a couple weeks into the season. And then once we see that true kind of workload, I guarantee it's going to kind of bum a little, most people out, because they're going to go in, the average person who is drafting Jonathon Taylor is going to win thinking, I'm getting what I saw at the end of last season. They're not going to realize the Marlon Mack effect. They're not going, and I don't think Nyheim Hines is going to have a significant role. I think with the signing of Marlon Mack, that kind of eliminates his major role. I think he'll more have like the Jonathan Williams role. And so I think it's going to be those two, mainly Mack and Jonathon Taylor. And I think people will be initially disappointed because they're going to see the workload that it's not just Jonathon Taylor. And then you'll be able to go in and get him much cheaper than you would have, at the draft. So that would be my added advice.
I don't mind that at all.
It would be my added
I think
advice.
the biggest thing I love for Jonathon Taylor is dropping one pass all of last year. And then you see him out there catching go routes now from Carson Wentz. That is exciting stuff that they're going to work him more. And to your point, that Nyheim Hines maybe takes more of a back seat than he did last year in the red zone and things of that nature. I want to say what's
88 targets, Travis, to the running back position last year. So, it will be a little bit difficult to see Jonathon Taylor really take that big opportunity in the receiving threat. I know I'm not saying he can't. I believe, you believe, we all believe, except for the Colts, that he can receive well. I just think that they'll use Marlon Mack and Nyheim Hines because they are available and they don't want to fully give him that workload. So, I love it, but I think it would be like the Derreck Henry kind of situation where we're kind of.
I don't know that they don't want to give him that workload. I know that over the last 5 games, they definitely did give him the workload. So maybe they do, and the signing of Mack is more for depth. So I would definitely go with the upside here, but I understand what people get a little bit dicey. But let's see what we got here is T.Y. Hilton, who re-signs with the Colts, Johnny. You've been kind of an up and down guy on T.Y. Hilton over your career and over his career. How are you feeling about T.Y. Hilton getting matched up with Carson Wentz here?
I do like that Carson and T are matching up. I do think that people are going to sleep on T.Y. Hilton because he underperformed. He was injured last year. Carson Wentz, again, like to throw the ball. It's not like that's eliminated his game. He did only have 57 attempts last season. That was just 6th in the league. But again, he didn't really have the true deep target threats. Yeah, he had Rieger, but Rieger was in and out of the lineup. Deshaun Jackson was in and out of the lineup. You're talking about the year before, Travis, when he had a little more stability at the wide receiver position in Philadelphia. Carson Wentz 69 deep ball attempts. That's 4.3 per game. That was 10th in the league. So that is definitely there. Got him on the wall, got to represent. But I do think actually T.Y. Hilton will be one of those guys because we have seen the upside when he does have a good quarterback, that he does have that upside to get you really nice fantasy production. And so why not? If you could get him in the, 11th, 12th, maybe even 10th round, why not take a stab on him?
Yeah, there's been flashes in Wentz's career of deep shots with guys. Torrey Smith, I think of before. And some other players, Deshaun Jackson. So there's been times where he's got it done for them. I want to talk a little bit about Michael Pittman. 40 for 61 for 503 yards and a touchdown in his rookie year. No game over 9 targets all season. 2 games over 10 points in half-point PPR. 9 games with 3 or fewer catchers. We're going to have to monitor his connection, especially with Wentz in the offseason, but I think Pittman is the type of build of a receiver that could actually thrive, but there's no there's no secret that the Colts want in on Julio Jones because they want a guy that's in dominant X. Right now, they don't really have that. And Pittman is a guy who could project to be that maybe one day, but we have not seen a ton.
How funny would that be, Travis, on like the turnaround of Carson Wentz and people getting excited? If you get him a toy like Julio Jones, and then it's going to be all of a sudden, you'll probably see Carson Wentz start to creep up in people's draft as they get a little bit more on board with his potential. But I think it's still there, even if he just has Pittman, or if he does actually get Julio Jones. I think that could be. I don't think he's ever had a player like Julio Jones, with all due respect to Alshon.
Well, there's only one person pretty much like Julio Jones ever, and that's basically been, Calvin Johnson.
I thought you were going to say DK Metcalf.
And DK is similar, very similar. AJ Brown getting in there too. But I want to say what's up to the Cat's Pajamas. Comes in here, says, "What's up, guys?" He says, "I just finished my first Dynasty draft today. Thanks for doing Dynasty mocks. It was good practice. If you guys want to join in on those mock drafts, we do them every Monday. Johnny and I have our rookie draft tonight. So Johnny's trying to throw up smoke screens earlier with Nico from the Texans. I heard him. I know what you're doing there, dude.
Are they really smoke screen?
Who knows? I just want to say that I think that because Carson Wentz is a guy that really loves the tight end position, I think that Mo Alley-Cox, not Jack Doyle. I know Jack Doyle is going to be the popular one, but he's the blocker and all that. I think Mo Alley-Cox is a guy who showed us that when he's on the field, that guy can do special things. And I'm really excited about what Mo Alley-Cox can do with my boy Carson Wentz. So keep an eye on him as one of those late round tight end dart throws. Because tight end is going so deep right now, I like taking Mo Alley-Cox as like a second guy in your last round of your draft, because I think he's a guy that with Wentz could really explode. He's just an athletic freak.
Talking about a wide receiver, Travis, that takes a while to break out. That guy he's had a lot of potential for the last few years, and we've kind of hoped for it, and potentially this could be the year. I just want to say on a side note, I saw this video on Instagram today, and it was Mo Alley-Cox, and it was I don't remember the other tight end that they were playing with. It wasn't one of their main guys, but anyway, they were playing a game of speed, and Mo Alley-Cox ended up winning. But it was pretty funny. They had the whole football team around. It looked like a good time,
See, and he's good at speed. You don't get points for that in fantasy, but still, it's a good deal. All right, moving on to our next team here, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. But before we talk about the Jaguars, Whisper Nation, I want to tell you that we're excited to debut our all-new TFWWF, our TFWFF chat on Discord. This message board is absolutely free to all of Whisper Nation and will include advice threads, content links, exclusive video clips, and a community dedicated to this incredible game of fantasy football. Join us today by clicking the link that we're about to drop in the chat right now. And you can also hit us up on Instagram, click the link in our bio, and you'll be able to just follow it right there. But we'll drop that in the chat right now for y'all.
It's also in the description underneath this video as well. So you can click there.
Yeah, you can click wherever you want.
Yeah. Also, hopefully my audio is coming through. I'm hearing.
It hasn't been the best, Johnny. I'm not going to lie. We're just going to take the time to just blame. Is it Spectrum that you have?
No, I have Cox, which is like the worst one. It's horrible. Yeah. But hopefully, I do need to get my mic back, or mic stand back from you, so I can jump back to my old mic. That's what I need to do.
Well, I don't know that has anything to do with your internet, but yes, I'll get that back over to you soon.
It has to do with sound, dude.
As soon as I quit using it on my end. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we're talking Jacksonville Jaguars next. I mean, the big stories here, Johnny, I think are going to be the running back position and the two wide receivers. I don't think there's a world where Trevor Lawrence is going to be anything but a streamable quarterback. We've talked about this after the rookie landing spots. We talked about the QB show. I don't think we need to go into too much detail about Trevor Lawrence here, but I do want to talk about the running backs, Johnny. So walk me through your take on these running backs and what Whisper Nation should do here, because Travis Etienne is now probably going to leapfrog our boy James Robinson in ADP. He was drafted in the first round here. He's definitely a guy that probably projects to be more of Urban Meyer's guy, but now we're talking about maybe Percy Harvin comps being used in the slot. It's kind of weird, Johnny. What's your take on this whole mess?
My take is that I really, really hope they give him that wide receiver eligibility for fantasy football, because if that happens, ladies and gentlemen, he will be a ultimate cheat code, because then you're going to be getting a wide receiver that's going to be getting touches basically on the same rate as a running back, which would be fantastic. And then you would be able to start potentially 4 running backs. But as of right now, that is not the case. They have not done that. They have just only allowed him in the running back position because he is a running back after all. Now, Travis, there is James Robinson here, and I do believe, you bring up some really good points. James Robinson is a really good running back. It made no sense for them to actually go out and draft a running back, let alone one in the first round. It was mind-blowing. It didn't make any sense. You can already see what is happening with Urban Meyers there. He is just like already starting to have this terrible effect on this team, and it's going to be very sad. But we'll see what ends up happening as far as how much input he has on the offense. Hopefully it's not a significant amount, Travis. However, I will say that I do think Travis Etienne, because he will be getting that, quote unquote, Percy Harvin role, we'll see what that actually equates to. I do think he will get a significant amount of touches overall because he is a very elusive player. But I do think James Robinson cannot be slept on this year in redraft leagues. I do think that like you said, he will end up flipping because there's going to be a lot of information that's coming out about Etienne. And will he be used? Yes, he will. But I also think James Robinson will be the guy on first and second down. You'll have some sprinkling in of Carlos Hyde, but the goal line work should be James Robinson. And you're talking about this team. We're going to talk about the wide receiver weapons here, but there's a lot of potential here for goal line work. And I would take that because touchdowns score points, and they score more points often than actually receiving work these days or running work. And in some cases, not always. But I'm just saying, Travis, with the draft capital that you're going to have to take for James Robinson eventually come September, a 6th round probably is where he's going to be, 7th round. I think that's fine. ETN in a PPR league, I still think he's nice. But I'm telling you, if he gets that cheat code of the dual position, look out. I would definitely consider him like in the 3rd round with some of those running backs, because that is just a cheat code that you can exploit.
Yeah, so James Robinson scored 7 rushing touchdowns, Johnny. That was 15th among running backs. So if we think this offense is going to get better, and I feel like I've been saying this the last few weeks, if we feel like the Jaguars offense is going to be better, and they gave him 7 rushing touchdowns last year, I just don't see a world where they're using ETN that much at the goal line. And so I think there's a situation where he could easily equal that touchdown mark, maybe even do better. And then he's going to do it on less carries. And so there's going to be a situation where, yes, he's not going to be the RB1 you wanted him to be before they drafted ETN. He's not going to be the RB1 that he ended the year, but there's no reason he couldn't be an RB2 and be successful in this offense.
The last note I want to make, Travis, before we move on to the wide receivers here, is that if you are someone in Dynasty that has James Robinson right now, it's just a very unlucky draw. It really is. Shouldn't happen, but it did. My advice to you,
I think it's an unlucky draw. Sorry, Johnny, not to cut you off. I think it's an unlucky draw in one way. You got him pretty luckily last year, probably. It's not like you'd spent a bunch of draft capital to get an undrafted free agent from Jacksonville last year. So you know what? Thank your lucky stars that you got what you got out of James Robinson and quit your crying.
No, I okay, fair enough. But what I do is there is a lot of potential for James Robinson to actually be somebody in this league because he showed it. Now, does he have to back that up this year? Absolutely. But here's what I would say. I would wait. If you're a James Robinson roster, someone who rosters him right now in Dynasty, I would wait a couple of games into the season. And then when he is showing he's still the good running back that everyone saw last year, people are seeing and realizing what the actual workload is there. And, if James Robinson falls in for some touchdowns, that'll help. But if that happens, then you sell him, because then it would be okay, you're kind of selling him what would be somewhat his peak, because people are going to buy in at that point. Right now, his value's, decreasing by the day. So you don't want to get rid of him right now. But I would also say, on the other hand, that now is actually probably a good time to go out and get James Robinson, not only for the fact that he'll be used this year, but his value is low right now. But think about this, Travis. This is a good point that I heard on another podcast, and excuse me, I forgot who had said it. But James Robinson was an unrestricted or undrafted / 7th round draft pick. Those guys only get 3-year contracts in the NFL. They're not 4-year like the first couple of first rounds get 5 years. Second rounds you have like a 4-year contract. Well, that doesn't happen with unrestricted free agents. You can only do 3 years. So James Robinson will only be, and he's super young. So by the time he gets released, even if he holds on to the Jags until he gets released, that puts him at 24 years old at that time, Travis. And so you're talking about a running back that still would be young, who we think is talented. Other teams are going to definitely see that and say, okay, he's going to be a cheaper option for us. Let's go with that guy. So there is still some upside down the road for James Robinson. It's just going to be, hodling. You grab that diamond hands.
I just don't just change your expectations of James Robinson. And here's the thing: you should be able to do that based on the fact that you got him for dirt cheap, most likely in Dynasty. And so you're just not going to get him that cheap this year in redraft. But you're going to get him cheap this year, and you just need to change your expectations. What are you drafting him for? To be an RB1? No, you're drafting for upside of an RB2. Want to say what's up to I'm going to lock it up. What's up, Whisperers? Appreciate the streams, y'all. And he said, I heard that, Johnny, and I think that could last 4 games or more to begin the year with Robinson. Yeah, look, there's a real scenario here where ETN isn't what everybody thinks he is, and it takes longer for him to kind of work into his first round capital. He's an undersized guy too. There's a world where he gets banged up and they use James Robinson more. There's a lot of outs for James Robinson to return value. And if he gets pushed down into the 5th and 6th round, like Johnny's saying, we've been saying it now for the last couple of weeks, that's huge. Johnny, I want to talk a little bit about the wide receivers. I'm going to start with Laviska Shenault because I love Laviska Shenault. And I think that, in a couple of years from now, we're going to be talking about Laviska as an alpha wide receiver. He only saw 79 targets last year. That was only 15%, but he only saw 66% of the snap share, 111 snaps from the slot. We'll see Marvin Jones added to this offense. We obviously have DJ Chark in contract. Johnny, where are you at? I think DJ Chark for redraft purposes is the guy this year. But for dynasty purposes, I got hit up today about Laviska Shenault on our rookie draft day if I was interested in moving him. And he's a hold for me because Trevor Lawrence comes to town. I hear the coaching staff talking about how they want to use Laviska Shenault better. And DJ Chark's contract. I mean, there were whispers they might trade Chark this offseason. So how do you break down the whole temperature of this wide receiver room and what you would be doing in redraft and dynasty respectively?
And I definitely do like Laviska. He has a lot of potential to be a really nice wide receiver down the road. I do think and I am buying in on him more so in dynasty than I am in redraft because I don't truly know what their plan is with DJ. I have heard rumors that they don't plan on re-signing him. And if they do, if that happens, he goes to another team, then the opportunity is definitely there. You kind of have to gamble with that. That is the rumor, right? That they're not going to re-sign him. But if he goes out and balls out this year, which he definitely has the capability of doing because we saw it last year, the year before, and then 2019, we saw him ball out, then you could be looking at, okay, now it's going to be, where are his targets going to come from? Potentially, is he truly going to be that alpha? Marvin Jones would probably be gone at that point. Who knows? I think he agreed to a 2-year contract, if I'm not mistaken, but here's what I'll say. I think it's worth the gamble because I think Laviska Shenault has the highlight ability, and he's a fun player, and we didn't see him break out. So his value is pretty low right now, unless you're Big Travis, because we talk him up, and he knows that I like him, and everyone likes him. So he won't let him go, but your average league mate might be a little bit low on him because he didn't really have a breakout game last year. I do want to make note of DJ Chark, though, Travis. I think that DJ Chark is going to be one of those guys that, similar to like a Will Fuller last year, where, we had kind of seen the upside of DJ Chark, but we didn't really buy it. Similar to Will Fuller, we saw some upside, but we didn't necessarily buy it. And then his value remained so low, and he was the guy for that team. And yet people were like, oh, well, there's injury risk and, there's no more Hopkins. And there was just, more excuses than, people have, belly buttons. And so a lot of people end up getting Will Fuller as a tremendous value. And I think the same case could be made this year for Chark, because Chark is going in like the 7th, 8th round. And I think it's criminal when last year he was going in, the 4th and 5th. And I understand he didn't return that value, but they had a different quarterback last year. And we all love, Gardner Minshew. We all wish he was going to be a good quarterback, but the reality was he wasn't. And when you look at Chark, it wasn't. I mean, look at this, Travis, 94 targets, which isn't significant, 40th in the league, but he did have 20% market share in that offense. And the air yards, so these are like the opportunity of the air, opportunity of what he could see, 1,300 yards, Travis. He was averaging 100 per game. You're not telling me with a better quarterback, a better offense, that you're not going to actually see that go up. And then you're talking about red zone targets. He was 12th, he had 12 last year, which apologize here. I totally lost track of where where I had kept that note of where his red zone targets were, but 29 deep targets, Travis. That's the big one. There's the winner chicken dinner. 29 deep ball targets with bad quarterbacks. That was 5th in the league. It goes hand in hand with the air yards, and you put half of that on paper. You complete half of those, which we all think that Trevor Lawrence can do because he's a much better quarterback. And you're looking at a bounce back candidate. This is what you look for. You got to buy in. Don't believe he did suffer some injuries, things like that. But this was much more quarterback driven than it actually was talent driven. And so, yes, give me all.
You talked about the 93 targets, Johnny. That's 7 targets a game because he missed 3 games. You talked about the injuries there. So you like that outlook because it's 7 targets per game, puts him around 115. And then that is around top 20 in the league, top 15 in the league in targets, and that's a better case. And then if that improves because Trevor Lawrence is slinging the ball around more, and then the value of those targets improves, you're talking about a real bounce back candidate right now going at 6'11". Johnny alluded to that ADP going at the end of the 6th round. That's a value. And it's part of the reason why we talk about this every Monday on the mock drafts, which you guys can check us out if you're subscribed over on YouTube and you hit the notifications. We talk about this, when I totally lost my train of thought there. We talk about the fact that if you can, that this year and last year we're drafting wide receivers between rounds 4 and 7, 3 and 7. And that's a guy right there. Chark, you could get him in the 6th, the 7th, maybe. And you're sitting there with a guy that becomes the number 1 on his team and an improved offense that's probably going to throw a lot because the defense isn't all there.
80.3% true catch rate, Travis. So that's taking, the actual targets that were catchable divided by what he caught. And that's pretty significant. So, his actual catch rate was 56.4%. So you meet even somewhere in the middle, and he has tremendous upside to me in drafts. And so I'm willing to take that gamble.
If Trevor Lawrence is the future, this is all I want to say lastly on Laviska Shenault. If Trevor Lawrence is the truth and the future that we think he is, which I think he can be in that offense, and this is a spread offense, Laviska Shenault is going to be very interesting. So keep an eye on him as a late round dart throw because he's a guy that can work in the slot, can win contested catch, can get carries. They can get really cute with Laviska if he stays healthy. That's a guy that's really, really talented. So we'll see what happens there. All right, finally, we're going to bring it home with the Tennessee Titans. Not a whole lot to go over here because it's a very concentrated offense. We know what's going to happen at
unless
each
you're
level.
Travis and wants to wish bad things upon this offense by saying
think
Julio Jones going.
I don't think that's bad things necessarily. Let me just break it down like this. Derreck Henry, you are definitely drafting where you're drafting him. This is one of the guys that's left that is, a fantasy Jesus at the position because he gets just a mess of carries. We know that. I don't have to spend a bunch of breath and life talking about Derreck Henry. And A.J. Brown, we've been over it a ton of times. Okay, wide receiver 9 in standard, wide receiver 12 in PPR, but that was only on 106 targets. Tennessee has lost Corey Davis, Adam Humphries, Jonnu Smith, 192 targets. 40% of their market share is gone. If Brown can absorb maybe 20% of those vacated targets that are gone, That would put him at 144 targets. That would have been 5th most in the NFL last year. A.J. Brown is fixing to eat Johnny, and it's not even funny. And if Aaron Rodgers, if there's this cloud over Aaron Rodgers, A.J. Brown to me is the number 1 wide receiver off the board, and I don't think it's close based on volume and talent mixed together in this offense.
I do want to say one thing. I know you wanted to rush over Derreck Henry because, rightfully so. We all know like what's going on there. I do want to bring up, though, there are some people that, obviously they saw the video. They saw him working on the catch, catching the ball and the pass protection and things like that. A lot of people went nuts and was like, oh, this is what's going to make Derreck Henry the number 1 overall running back and that you should take him all. He already did it. He already finished as the number 1 running back, and he wasn't in, he didn't catch the ball tremendously. He only had 31 targets. This is what I want to say on that front. I don't believe if you're going into your draft thinking, I'm going to get Derreck Henry because I think he'll finish as the number 1 overall running back, because he's going to all of a sudden see 70 to 80 targets, I think you're going to be definitely disappointed. And the reason I say that is because you look at Ryan Tannehill, and what do we say all the time, Travis? Running quarterbacks or scrambling quarterbacks that tend to use their feet. Well, instead of dumping off to the running back, what do they end up doing? They end up pulling it down and scrambling. And we saw that a lot last year with Ryan Tannehill. 43 carries, Travis, 2.7 per game. He had 10 red zone carries and 7 rushing touchdowns. Now, could that regress and, a couple more go to Derreck Henry? Absolutely. But I'm just saying, if you're going into your draft, go in saying, being confident that Derreck Henry could get there just on rushing alone, and that's why he could be the number 1 running back. Don't go in expecting all of a sudden a huge market share of receptions, because if you do that, you're going to be disappointed, and then you're going to want to sell Derreck Henry early because you're going to be like, well, I thought the passing was going to be there, and it's not. Now what should I do?
Yeah, I just think, sure, that could happen. I think it's dramatic to think that if you draft him within the top 5 at some point because he's not catching more balls, you're going to be upset because he scored you 20 instead of 25.
Travis,
Johnny,
you say that now, but you should check the DMs last year after.
Yeah, no, I know. And we have some people that are confused. Yeah, and it was the same guy. It was the same guy that came coming back about Derreck Henry.
Exactly.
And that guy needs to realize that Derreck Henry's the truth.
It wasn't just him. There were a couple of people. I don't want to name names, but there it was more than 1 and less than 5.
Okay, 2 guys. 2 guys that
more than that.
Oh my God, we're gonna have a whole narrative about how
I just gave you a spectrum.
Don't sell Derreck Henry early because he's not catching any passes. We know this, but here's the thing: like I just said with A.J. Brown, there's a ton of targets available, Johnny. So they got to go somewhere, and we know they're not going to your boy Josh Reynolds, who you love so much. So they're probably going to A.J. Brown.
There'll be about 80 going.
They're probably going to A.J. Brown. They're going to go to Anthony Firkser, who I'll let you dive into next. But I do want to talk a little bit about Tannehill. Okay, this guy's been an absolute stud. He is the poster boy for drafting your quarterback late. 3,800 yards, 33 passing touchdowns. That was a career high. 7 interceptions, second lowest of his career. 266 rushing yards on 43 attempts, as Johnny talked about. 7 rushing touchdowns. Most passing touchdowns of 50-plus yards in the last 2 seasons. That list goes Aaron Rodgers with 6, Ryan Tannehill with 6, Kirk Cousins with 6. So you've got guys. Look, we've talked about the stats that over the last 2 years, Tannehill and Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers kind of look very similar. He loves this offense. The big thing is Arthur Smith going away, but the big pieces have not left. Derreck Henry and A.J. Brown are still there. And then, Johnny, I'll let you talk about Anthony Firkser, but I love Ryan Tannehill. He's been, Jalen Hurts, Tom Brady being drafted ahead of him. I think he's a guy you can stack your core pieces, your skill positions, and then fall into a guy like Ryan Tannehill and be very set. And you could even stream between Tannehill and another late round guy and be very set. So I really like Tannehill, and I think I like what he does for this offense, especially Johnny's not going to want to hear this, so earmuffs, especially if Julio Jones comes to town. And I think that would be very good for Ryan Tannehill's outlook. But Jonnu Smith has left in free agency, Johnny, and that means your boy Anthony Firkser is looking to put a hurting on opposing defenses. Do you believe in Firkser this year? Is he somebody that we can draft like we drafted Jonnu Smith last year, who broke out early on? Do we think Firkser, with Jonnu Smith gone, is now somebody that is going to be a tight end 1 in fantasy?
I mean, a tight end 1 in fantasy is nothing that's like too out of reach. So I definitely think he'll be a top 12 fantasy player. I do think people are sleeping on him as well because they are kind of starstruck by the AJ Brown and the Derreck Henry news. And, you know, we just saw Jonnu get shipped out, but not a lot of people know that Anthony Firkser is actually the backup tight end. He's not a big, well-known named. I don't even know if I just said that right, but if I did, oh well. He's not well known as from a tight end perspective. Now, if you're listening to the show, you definitely know who we were talking about because we had mentioned him last year in multiple shows on waiver wire targets. Now, I do believe that he's going to be a guy you're going to want to target later on in drafts. I've mentioned it many a times before. One of my favorite guys to draft later on is Tyler Higbee, but I would also say Anthony Firkser is one of those other guys that, you know, if someone takes the Tyler Higbee, then I don't mind grabbing Firkser, or if you know, having 50-50 shares is always good of you know, diversifying your tight end position, because one of those guys I'm very confident is going to be very good for you. And the reason I'm so confident in that is you look at Jonnu Smith last year, Travis. He had 65 targets, right? We were talking about the massive vacated targets that, you know, all these players left, but just Jonnu himself had 65 targets. He had a 16% target market share, 30.5% red zone target share, Travis. Now, I know what you're thinking. And this is the other big thing too that's real nice and sexy. What do we like when we talk about where our tight ends line up in the slot? He did that 125 times. That was a 19% rate, which was 17th in the league. You gotta love all of that information. Now, I know you're saying Jonnu Smith he is more talented than Anthony Firkser, but I do want to remind you, when Anthony Firkser came into the game last year, when Jonnu was banged up, he did have against Houston, he was the number 1 tight end in the league, or in the for the tight end position that week. He definitely can possess that upside. Now, did he do that steadily? Of course not, because he didn't see, that was the only time he saw a 60% snap share, was when he got that opportunity, and he happened to be the number 1 tight end. I think that there's a very good case, Travis, as to why you should, you know, take a late round dart throw on him. If you need a tight end and he's available, I'm picking him up. I'm stashing him.
Yeah, I like Firkser. I think just based on the same reasons we love the upside of passing for Derreck Henry and AJ Brown, of course, we got to love it for Firkser as well, who was productive with Jonnu Smith kind of in the lineup still at the end of the last year too, which means that Firkser now with all this open situation is going to be really, really intriguing. Raider Carlos comes in late, says the Raiders. Listen, we're going to talk Raiders and the rest of the AFC West on Friday, so make sure you're subscribed, Raider Carlos, and you hit that notification so you can catch us on YouTube Friday, busting down your Raiders and letting you know what you think. Really excited about Henry Ruggs, really excited about the outlook for Henry Ruggs when we talk about that on Friday. I'm going to lock it up. Raider Carlos, everybody else who's watching, check out that Discord link that's right there in the chat. Hit that, and it's in the description as well, as Johnny said. And join us over on Discord. We already had a couple guys join us over there today. Johnny, any final thoughts for Whisper Nation before we head into the rest of this week?
If you have not subscribed yet, please do us a huge favor. We're trying to get to 1,500 subs.
Yes,
you could help. It's free. You just got to hit that subscribe, hit that bell notification, and that's it, Travis. That's all I got, man. I'm so grateful for everyone that has already subscribed on that platform. We have put our heart and soul into that, making content for that. So it's just a good feeling, and we appreciate Whisper Nation that have already followed along.
Yes, sir. For Johnny Game Time Hicks, I'm Big Travy. We are the Fantasy Whispers. We're out. Peace.
Right here.
Oh, hey, you made it to the end of the video. If you like what you saw, go ahead and hit subscribe. And make sure you hit that bell so you get notified anytime we drop new content or go live. And if you're still not sold yet, check out one of these videos.